Welcome to Israel Weekly, ILTV's popular internet and cable television weekly show coming to you from Israel. This week we have a very exciting program. We're going to be discussing some interesting issues. With me, my guests are Dani Ayalon, former Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel and former Israeli Ambassador to Washington. As usual, it's a pleasure to have you here, Dani.
Same here, Barak.
And Uri Zaki, who is a new guest for me. Uri is an activist within the Meretz Party. He is the president of the Meretz Governing Assembly and also spent some time in Washington as a former B'Tselem USA executive director.
That's right.
Welcome, Uri.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Okay, we're going to start off with the program. A lot of the news lately has been focusing on what's going on in Amana, whether you call it Judea and Samaria or the West Bank. What exactly is going on there? There's been a Supreme Court ruling on some houses there, 40 homes in Amana, 20 homes in Netiv HaAvot, and 9 homes in Ofra that seem to have been built on private land or what is deemed as private land. That is part of the debate. The Israeli Supreme Court decided that those homes are in fact on land that does not belong to the State of Israel, and they must be evacuated. So the homes in Amana will be evacuated, or supposed to be, on the 25th of December. Netiv HaAvot has about 6 months, and in Ofra, the 9 homes have to be left within about a year, and some of those homes were built in 1976. So this is not a new problem that's taking place. There was attempt to make a legislation that included a number of homes that have similar status, and there's about 12,000 of them right now that have not been decided by the Supreme Court but could possibly be. But because of this was decided by the Supreme Court, it's not included in that legislation. I call that the ammonia legislation to kind of whiten the Amana homes, but it is not exactly that. So the question is this more politics? Is it legal? What exactly is going on here? And there also seems to be a fight between the Israeli Supreme Court and the political establishments, with a lot of the parties weighing in on both right and center. Let me start with you, Dani. How would you sum it up, and what would you say are the important issues to speak about?
Well, to your question, the short answer is it's all politics, unfortunately. And it's just a matter of, I would say, a balance of threats and powers between the parties on the right, Bennett, the Bayit Yehudi, and Bibi Likud, who is more right, who is more righteous, and who is more defending the cause. But if you look down deeper, it's not just about Amona or the issue of unauthorized settlements. It's about the character of the Israeli democracy. It's about the status of the Israeli Supreme Court. And once there is a Supreme Court resolution, I don't think that the government has any choice. Benny Begin, member of Knesset Benny, nobody would suspect he is a lefty, said you have to abide by the Supreme Court. And also on the merit of the issue, you cannot build on private homes. Otherwise, as he termed it, it's like stealing. I think there should be some propositions for the future, but when it comes to Amona, unfortunately, and my heart goes to the people there, to the settlers there, but you cannot in a democracy legislate back or retroactively. And this is the real issue.
Mm-hmm. And Benny Begin was sanctioned by his party today.
Unfortunately, yes.
He's being banned from meetings on a certain committee. Now, Uri, you hear that, and what would you say to that?
I think it's very much telling, the fact that supposedly Dani and myself are supposed to represent 2 political camps in Israel, and you see our very different background, but we're in complete agreement when it comes to the question of both Amona in particular and the law that supposed, the same Benny Begin called that law a law of robbery, a law of theft, because it's basically the Knesset is passing a law that says criminals who took individual and privately owned lands are, as you said, their actions are being whitened. And that's, I think, what's going on here, that there is a shift in the Israeli politics, not between necessarily right and left. That's definitely there. But the Israeli right is going to a direction that is very dangerous and already harming the Israeli democracy. And I think that there are many decent people in the right, like Benny Begin, like Ambassador Ayalon, and others, who see that and see there's something going on there. And I think Amona and that law is only one example of a very scary situation of deterioration in the balance of powers between the different branches of the government, the attack on the Supreme Court, attacks on the media. All the pillars of the Israeli democracy are under attack by the government and by the ruling coalition. And I think all of us who care about Israeli democracy should be really concerned about that.
Mm. Do you think this is an issue that could bring down the government? Is this something they're going to go all the way on, or?
As Danny said, this political game, Netanyahu doesn't let Bennett take the votes of the basically the extreme right or the settlement right. Netanyahu is very unique in that sense, if I'll be a political analyst for a sense. All his predecessors as prime ministers from the Likud, Begin, Sharon, focused on the center, not necessarily only on the right, and didn't want to lose the center. Netanyahu is giving up on the center. That's why someone like Yair Lapid, a former journalist who was the Minister of Finance, is now getting many votes in the polls. Netanyahu is giving up on the center, which usually a prime minister would do, and is only in a constant fight with Bennett. And each time Bennett is doing something, and Bennett is the leader of the Jewish Home Party, the Settlers Party. Whenever he has a statement, Netanyahu would follow suit. And that's very odd, and that deteriorates the situation within the Israeli right into a place of extremism.
Donnie, public diplomacy. How is the world viewing this, in your opinion, as a former ambassador and former top diplomat of the foreign?
Well, that's the next very important issue, Mitch. And as we mentioned, the problem of Amona extends beyond just the moral issues, the separation of powers in Israel, the respect for the Supreme Court and all that. It's also a matter of practicality. And this is, again, I very much support the Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria. But I say because of this Amona, it's a very, very small, it's a fraction of the population, certainly of the land. You can really undermine the legitimacy of this other so many great communities that we do have in Judea and Samaria. So this is where the entire world is looking very, very, very carefully at what Israel is going to do with Amona. And if they feel that we are bending the rules, that we are discriminating against, whether the Arabs or whatever, not only there is the risk, as Bibi Netanyahu himself says, the risk of taking him and the government and Israel into the Hague Tribunal, but also politically, there may be no support for the wider or the entire settlement enterprise in Judea and Samaria.
Now, a lot of the parties that represent or that have a large base of support in the settlements, they will go full head with the government. And I think that some of the religious parties have brought down more governments than any parties. Is this something that they can compromise on? Or it's not in their DNA to compromise, and every last home is going to fight till the end?
I think it's very telling that the Council of Yesha, the Council of Judea and Samaria, is quite mute. You don't hear them. They let these Amona people, very small fraction of the population, really make all the noise. And probably they want to, again, stand on their principles and show the world and the government that you cannot uproot Jewish settlements anywhere, that there's going to be a very, very heavy price. But at the same time, I think most of the responsible settlers and their leaders understand that Amona cannot. It's not a defensible issue. For the government stability, I don't think that it will shake up the government, because today there is no interest whatsoever among all the components of the government to have early elections. Not Bennett, not Likud, not Kulanu, nobody. So I believe they will find some ways to kind of patch things up and move forward.
Uri, let me ask you from a different angle, as someone who has represented B'Tselem, human rights organization. Is there a human rights issue here for people, let's say, that have been living in Ofra since 1976? Meaning the Labor Party government at that point put them there. Meaning maybe was the government at fault? I mean, they actually, what they did was legal at the point. Where are their, do they have civil rights, according to someone like you from
I'm not that aware about the issue of Ofra. I should say that in general, according to international law, it's all the settlement enterprise is considered illegal by all international world experts and institutions across the world, and I think the settlers themselves know that this is the way international law regards them. As to Amona, again, this is not something new. I met with the owners of the land who said, since I believe it was 94, 95 when they first settled there, these people lost the access to their lands. Now, B'Tselem itself, in 2006, with the pictures we see here, there was a very brutal desettlement of several houses in Amona. The police acted brutality in a very brutal manner, and B'Tselem issued a report about that, condemning how the settlers were treated. Not the fact that they were uprooted, because in many cases in Israel, in the United States, and all around the world, when you have people who are settling in privately owned lands that are not their own, and they knowingly doing that, they are being evacuated. That's part of legal action. So I'm not sure that they have, of course, if the government gave them something, the government has responsibilities of compensation. Let's put it this way. In Israel, every day there are evacuations of all sorts of citizens from their own homes. Some of them date back to 48 and 49. Jews, Arabs. Nobody gets even a close attention and treatment like those 40 families in Amona. So yeah, I really understand their genuine sorrow for having to lose their homes, but they were there knowingly, and they should be, they're at least getting compensation, even though when they first settled there, they knew they were settling on a privately owned land. They knew that this was not a formal settlement, unlike Ofra. The Ofra case is a bit more complicated, and therefore it's hard to say that these are people just were brought somewhere naively not knowing what's going on there.
Mitch, if I may I think it's important to shed light on one more angle, which is very important. Human rights, unfortunately, is very politicized. I think that the B'Tselem position would have been much more credible had they used the same benchmark, the same yardstick, not just to the settlers in Ofra or in Judea and Samaria, but also to the squatters, to those Arab, Israelis or not, who are also usurping or taking land illegally. And here, the government is not under pressure to evacuate them, and in many cases, the government is very lenient towards them. So I think this is also something which here, the people of Ofra and Amona do have the case. Now, another issue, internationally, you look at North Cyprus. The Turks, since the 70s, when they occupied and conquered North Cyprus, divided actually de facto Cyprus to north and south, they have kicked out hundreds of thousands of Cypriots and populated it with Turks who came from the mainland, from Turkey. And there, not only that they settled on private lands, but they were already built houses that they took. And there they found a practical solution by building a tribunal, judging every case of a complaint or of a claim, and giving some kind of compensation. So I think there should be, and there is a case, except at least from the moral point of view, for the Amona people to do the same as they did in other places in the world.
Here we're in deep argument.
I'm
As
glad.
Secretary Kerry
I was
said,
worried that we don't have
Secretary
argument.
Kerry just said in Washington in the Saban Forum, the settlements themselves, it's nothing to. I don't know the Cypriot case well enough. It's obvious that the settlements are not part of something that is peacefully being done. It's the biggest obstacle to any political solution. You're right, and it's a grave human rights violation towards the Palestinians. It's continued to be so. By the way, hundreds and thousands of Arab houses are being evacuated. B'Tselem, I'm not representing B'Tselem, I haven't been there with them for 3 years now, but they are focused on what's going on in the West Bank and Gaza, not in Israel proper. And when there are things to criticize Palestinians, they do that very often.
And the Jerusalem mayor also weighed in on this, saying that he would do that exactly.
By the way, Mitch, one last word from my point of view, and then of course you can continue. But I think Secretary of State Kerry was very wrong to put the blame on the settlements. Until 1967, there were no settlements. You know, Israel did not have an inch in the West Bank. There was no peace, just terror, delegitimizations, incitement. So the settlement is not the issue. We left Gaza uprooting 21 Jewish communities, didn't bring on any peace. I think it's too easy.
Agreement.
Yeah, of course, but I think it's too easy to blame everything on the settlements. It's not the settlements.
Let me just bring up one more point on this issue, because you used the word same yardstick and so forth. So I'd like to take that same yardstick and bring us back to 1995. The Prime Minister was Yitzhak Rabin. He wanted to pass the Oslo Accords. In order to do that, he had to strengthen his government to do that. He needed to entice a party to join him. In order to do that, he offered Gonen Segev and Alex Goldfarb minister and deputy minister positions. The Supreme Court had already ruled against it. But some of the greatest left-of-center minds, David Libai, Amnon Rubinstein, came along and they said, we can now legislate in the Knesset a bypass Supreme Court law. And Alex Goldfarb got his Mitsubishi, and the Oslo Accords passed. What do you now say about the Supreme Court?
Again, by the way, I'm not familiar with this particular example. I think that the Supreme Court of Israel is something that we all should be proud of. I think it's a true defender of the Israeli democracy. By the way, the Chief Justice right now of the Supreme Court came from a family of revisionists from the Likud party. Her husband was the cabinet minister of Prime Minister Menachem Begin. She's not, and many times the ruling, by the way, the most important ruling, in my view, of the Supreme Court is legitimizing the settlement enterprise, which was, as I said before, against international law. And I think the fact that the settlement enterprise is blooming now is very much due to this same Supreme Court. So we can give, it's not like the Supreme Court is a branch of merits. I don't see it like that at all. I think, though, as someone who believes deeply in the Israeli democracy, that we all should defend it. And that's why Benny Begin does that. That's why Danny Alon does that, and others. But the current government is failing to do that, and it's attacking it. It's very concerning.
Okay, I think we can agree on that, and let's move on to the next issue. This week, of course, every month we have the same issue coming up again because it's Rosh Chodesh, it's the start of the new month. And when that happens, is the women of the wall come to the Kotel because they want to pray like everyone else, and they have a right to pray. And this is something that the Prime Minister's office has been working on, and there are other legal opinions that say they should be granted access. And in fact, there is a compromise in place to build a section that has mixed prayers for men and women together, for Reform and Conservative, and so forth. So right now we see at the Kotel there's a men's section, there's a women's section, and there are plans to build a mixed section. But every month it comes up again, and there's some people that kind of take the law and their vigilantism into their own hands to attack some of those people. It doesn't look particularly good for diaspora-Israel relations. And the part of the problem is the government doesn't really have a clear-cut move forward policy. They may have a policy in order to do this, but things are not moving. So I'd like to turn the discussion now to, I'll start with you, Uri. What does it mean? I mean, you probably a lot of the supporters and people that you work with, that you've worked with in Meretz and in B'Tselem, represent a very, very important segment of the American Jewish population, one that supports Israel even when we insult them, we disrespect them, we don't take them seriously. And I say we as the Israeli government. I mean, there are comments that come out from Israeli ministers and members of Knesset which are insulting, which are disrespectful and not nice. And these are the people that are really, some of them are going over and, bending over backwards to support Israel. What are the things that you hear and that is important to them?
First of all, I myself pray both in Israel and in Washington, D.C. When I used to live there in a traditional egalitarian shul. So for me, it's even a personal issue. I believe that the compromise that was agreed upon, and it is a compromise because the reform and conservative movements agreed to give up on the more traditional historical part of the Kotel and to go to something that was excavated part of the Kotel that wasn't used to be prayed in, and I think that was a compromise. I think what happened is, and everybody, the chair of the Jewish Agency, and as you said, the Prime Minister, and even the ultra-Orthodox parties agreed to that. What happened is that their internal media started attacking them, the politicians from the ultra-Orthodox sections, and I guess now it's, with new media and everything, they are more adhered to what's going on in their media rather than just the rabbis. And all of a sudden they're being accused for being supportive of the reforms. Now, that was perhaps because of this wave, even moderate people like Minister Rabbi Deri from the Shas party starting attacking the reforms, joining other ultra-Orthodox Jews, and it ended up with an attack on a Reform temple in Ra'anana, an attack of vandalism, with graffitis, very like anti-Semitic basically graffitis. You see what's going on. I'm really concerned again, and this compromise. Look, Israel has to understand that most Jews in the world, those who go and pray somewhere, who belong to a community, belong to congregations that are not Orthodox. And I think many of the Orthodox Jews in Israel, at least modern Orthodox in Israel, understand that too. I think the ultra-Orthodox parties that have a lot of political weight in this coalition have to be, the Prime Minister has to let them know, look, we are the state of Israel. We are the Jewish homeland. We cannot afford discriminating against Jews in the most sacred places to Jews that is under our control, and therefore this compromise, has to pass. I don't know. I don't see it happening again. They're holding the coalition together, so it's hard.
Donnie, comments from what he said in your experience in America as an ambassador and meeting many of the leaders and many of the rank and file people in the places that you traveled.
Well, my experience in the United States, and I think I have visited 41 out of the 50 states, 41 of the 48 contiguous states.
Me too, by the way. It's exactly the same number.
31, amazing. We will compare notes later, what states we have missed. And again, Orthodox and conservative and reform, the entire gamut. And there is a great, great Jewish community in the United States. And if we learn anything from history, is that peace within our camp, peace and solidarity among our own people is more important than anything else. Fighting and infighting is what can really bring catastrophes. And here I say unity is important, but unity not as in uniformity. I mean, we have to respect every denomination or every, let's say, a movement within the Jewish religion. And this is something that not only the decent thing to do, not only is the logical thing to do, I would say it is imperative if we want to continue to live as a people in order to continue to be able to defend ourselves by ourselves here and in any Jewish community worldwide. It's not just our issue, Our enemies and detractors, they do not distinguish between Reform or Orthodox or anyone else. This is something that we should understand. So specifically about the Kotel and the women of the Kotel, there are two issues here. One is an issue of agreements that must be honored. And here the government, unfortunately, because of the pressure that we saw, social media and all that, reneged. And secondly, there is an issue of law enforcement and law and order. And here I think that the government and the police and all the law enforcement agencies can do better on the two issues. First of all, not to let any attacks on the women, and at the same time make sure that the women of the Kotel do not do any provocations against the Orthodox. And
Provocation is their mere way of prayer. There's no other
Right.
way for them to pray in the Kotel apart from that.
Yes, but again, sometimes they are overzealous. And again, I'm not trying to blame. I guess there is enough
Well,
blame to.
we have all visited Masada. I mean, that's where the original zealots were. I mean,
That's right.
true.
But again, basically, I think it's again a matter of leadership. And leadership is to do the right things, to honor the agreements, and not just to bend and cave to some kind of demagoguery and populist pressure.
is this something that we're going to see resolved in this government or in our time, the way we're going to see actually that Jews of any kind can come to the Kotel to pray?
Unfortunately, I don't see that the genie is out of the box right now, and I don't see how they reconcile this issue.
I think it's a test of Netanyahu's leadership. I think Netanyahu understands American Jewry. He understands that this is a real problem. It's it's a significant part of, the shelter of his government. I think it's a real test for his leadership. I'm not sure he's going to meet it, but definitely the weight is on him.
Now, sometimes I feel like we have support of the Reform and conservative Jewish community in spite of ourselves,
Yes,
and in spite of how we.
Exactly.
Do we ever get to the point where they say maybe that they're fed up with it, and they put their foot down and say we're not going to do it, or they're just going to keep moving forward?
I hope not. I don't think that any separation is an option. I believe that it's incumbent upon all of us, leaders, lay leaders, rabbis, from all the walks of the religion, to sit together. Sometimes we have to bite the bullet, sometimes we have to bite our lips, but we must find a way to do it. And at the end of the day, I believe we should find a common ground where I believe 85 to 90% of the Jews can agree on. And then I believe this is what we need to do, to concentrate on the consensus. And then the fringes will come after we have the central masses put together.
Okay. I want to thank you, Donnie. I want to thank you, Uri. We had a lot of areas of agreement. We had a lot of areas of disagreement, but it was informative and everyone's views were respected. And I want to thank you both for joining me here in the studio. That'll wrap it up for ILTV's Israel Weekly. You can see us on the internet, iltv.tv or Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us.